Hi, I'm Pádraig O'Malley, creator of SMACHT and author of The Midas Power. It's my pleasure to share with you today 15 marketing POWs. POW stands for Pearl of Wisdom. Now these pearls of wisdom have been used by my most successful and wealthy clients over the last 20 years. And let me tell you this, any one of them has the power to utterly transform your business. Used collectively, they can absolutely turn your business around in due time. But before we go into the POWs, for starters, what is marketing? Okay, maybe to answer that question best of all, it's good to go back and ask yourself, what is the purpose of business? And without a shadow of a doubt, we would argue the purpose of business is to make money. Other than that, it's just a hobby. If you're not making money, you're not in business. And there are only two ways to make money. One is you gotta get customers for your business, very simply. And the second one is you gotta keep them or retain them. And that effectively, ladies and gentlemen, is the most practical definition of marketing you'll ever need. So essentially the only two questions you gotta ask are, what are we doing as a business to get customers? What are we doing as a business to hold on to them? So that's it. What is marketing? Next question. Why is marketing important? Well, the quotation I have always loved and always given, it's the old-fashioned one. Doing business without marketing is like winking at a pretty girl in a dark room. You know what you're doing, but nobody else does. And for 25 years, I have seen brilliant people with brilliant services, brilliant products, and then they wondered why nobody buys them. And the very simple reason that people don't buy them is that they haven't engaged in marketing. So we've asked the question, what is marketing? Why is it important? And now we need to come into the next one. How do we go practically about getting and keeping customers for our business? Well, what I'd like to do is, I'd like to share with you some of these POWs, as I'll call them. And POW number one, very simply, we said in the beginning of all our programs, planning, you cannot hit a target you can't see, or at least at the very most, it's very difficult to do that. So you need a marketing plan. No big deal. There are books 500 pages long written on marketing plans. Your marketing plan is only to answer two questions that we've talked about already. What are you doing to get customers? Or what are you doing to keep them or retain them? Very, very simply, that's where your marketing begins. So number one, you've got a plan. Number two, just looking at my notes here, always remember that people buy people first and they buy your products or services second. Very, very important. People think that if they build the best product in the world will be the path to their door. Not true. In this day and age, empathy, your ability to get on with your customer is still second to none. So really important. People buy people first and they buy your products or service second. Number three, if you've got a choice between being better or different, different wins every time. I know that flies in the face of the traditional thinkers. We were always led to believe in college that you got to be better or you got to be the best. The best is not necessarily the most important thing in marketing. Being different is. Ideally, be different and better. But remember, being different is hugely important. So a really crucial question to ask all of your marketing issues are we being different? There's a beautiful slide of a bunch of black and white zebras. And the botanists tell us that the beauty of zebras is that a lion cannot stalk them because their colours all shimmer into one. A lion is incapable of picking out a single zebra. There's a beautiful image of a blue zebra amongst the rest of them, and he's so easily capturable. Now that's the image I would love you to have for your business. Where am I a little bit different? Okay? Different beats better every single time. Next big phase in marketing, and you better believe this, I call it EBM, education-based marketing. I learned this from Chet Holmes, one of the great American writers in selling and marketing. And you know, the old days, we were always brought up that knocking on doors, numbers game, more people you speak to, that's what marketing's all about. And it's very important still. However, times have changed. The playing pitch has changed. The rules are different now. If you want to make big business, you've got to educate your clients. And the reason for that, very simply, ladies and gentlemen, is the emergence of the internet. The internet has changed the way we do business. For a fraction of the cost it would have cost you years ago, you can now communicate with billions of people. One of our great clients, Paul Kenny from Cabone.com, he continues to tell me that we've got 7.2 billion people in the world, and half of those are online. Now that's one of the most significant demographics. One of the most significant demographics are that there are 7.2 billion people in the world, and about 3 billion of those are online. So folks, if you intend staying in business over the next 3 to 5 years, you've got to make sure that you've got a very powerful online presence. And the way to do that, very simply, is to educate your customers. If I look to my left over the River Corrib, I'm looking over the estuary in my office, I see Garrity's shop. And those of you who know me have heard me speak about Aidan Malone, Sid Malone, Garrity's shop. It's written about in our book, The Midas Power. And he's one of the greatest salespeople I've ever met, because when you go into Aidan Malone, you don't buy shoes. He educates you on what shoes do for you. He will tell you there are 200,000 nerve endings connected to every organ in your body. And by wearing a good pair of shoes makes you feel better. It makes you more energetic. It makes you in better form when you're with people. You're not going in buying pieces of leather. Sid is the consummate educator. Now you've got a brilliant opportunity to do this on your website. Go and educate your clients. Yeah, and do it for nothing. The more you educate, the more business that will actually accrue to you. Incidentally, another demographic, while we're speaking about demographics, about 51% of those 3.5 billion people are what? Yeah, you got it, they're women. And so many people fail to focus on women as a customer or market segment. Once again, become a little bit different and focus in on that segment. Very, very powerful implications. Okay, I want to share with you probably the most potent marketing strategy that I saw in operation in 25 years. In college, it just bore the pants off me when I used to hear the professor speak about market segmentation. And one of my very first assignments as a marketing consultant was to work in a butcher shop. Very typical traditional butcher shop down a side street in a small town in Ireland, the west coast of Ireland. Population about 35,000. And this butcher came to me and he said, there were 5 butcher shops in my hometown of Galway. And he said, now the supermarkets are coming in. And he said, it's become more competitive. In fact, I don't know if I'm making money anymore. And we set about a marketing strategy session. And what we actually did was, we began by segmenting the market. Now you might ask yourself, how do you segment a market for a butcher shop? Presumably anybody who goes into a butcher shop goes there to buy meat. Well, that's not entirely the case. After about 90 minutes, we had brainstormed about 26 different segments. You know, and in any particular order, no particular order, there were B&B owners. There were elderly people. There were mothers. There were yuppies. You may see that I'm using the alphabet here. But in any event, at the end of that 90-minute session, first time we worked in this butcher shop, we identified 26 different segments. Now I went back, and next question I asked them, I said, how many B&B owners do you guys have in your business? How many? And they didn't know. But you don't have to be a rocket scientist to find that out. In their internal records, they could identify that they had about 20 B&B owners on their books. Next question I asked was, how much does the average B&B owner spend on a weekly basis in your shop? And once again, they didn't know it instantly. But they sent somebody out and they came back and they said the average spend is about €100 per week. And all of a sudden I could see the owner and his wife of this butcher shop get excited. Because very quickly they had 20 B&Bs, each spending about €100. So that was about 2k per week. It's a lot of money for a butcher shop. And all of a sudden it went off in their eyes that, well, we got to do two things. Once again, the two core beliefs of marketing. One, what are we going to do to hold on to those 20 customers? And two, what are we going to do to get more? Because we discovered that in this small town of Galway, there are about 200 other B&Bs. So there's about 80% of the market that these people didn't have, if not 90%. So, how do you go about doing that? Well, for the next week, I went and I met with 12 B&B owners. This is what's called market research, or looking for market information. And I asked them very simply, one, what are the challenges being a B&B owner? And I got lots of qualitative information. Next I said, why do you shop in that butcher shop as opposed to the other 5 or 6 butcher shops in Galway? I asked, was it because they're the cheapest price? And they said, no, he's by no means the cheapest price. Has he the best quality? Not necessarily. You know, there's a supermarket across the road, the quality is as good. They did not say what the actual butcher shop thought were the real reasons that their customers shopped there. The biggest reason they shopped there was they perceived that this butcher shop had better delivery. And the following week, I came back with this market information. And this market information, the purpose of information is to enable you to make better decisions. I arrived back, and our next session was, what do we actually do now that we know that delivery is important? And we came up with a number of strategies. We decided to employ a telesales girl. And every particular morning, this girl would ring 20 B&B owners. She would ask them how many people are they staying, what was the story, did they need more of this, more of that. Within 1 week, the average order went from €100 to €120. That's a 20% increase in the average spend, simply by just being interested. And very quickly, this girl began to sell other products like brown bread, like delivering the papers. And not alone did the average order increase, but so also did the number of B&B owners. And a funny thing happened, another segment presented that we weren't even aware of the first time. And that segment were hotels. And in as little as 2 to 3 months, this business had transformed itself through very rifled, targeted market segmentation. We did many other experiments over about a year to a 2-year period. Some worked brilliantly, others failed dramatically. My point is, ladies and gentlemen, if you wish to sell more and to increase your brand awareness, think market segmentation. It costs very little other than your applied focus and time. Now, very quickly, let me come on to another theme That is a real POW, Pearl of Wisdom. Over 20 years ago, Tom Peters wrote the iconic book In Search of Excellence. And subsequent to that, he wrote about the power of design. And one of the things he said is, do not look on marketing as a cost, rather look at it as an investment. And he said, spend money on design. Now, what do we mean by design? I don't have a newspaper here with me, but have you ever wondered what the average amount of time somebody looks at a page of a newspaper? What do you think? It's as little as 4 seconds. Now you might say, no, that's not true. Think of me, when I get the Irish Independent, I go straight to the sports section. And I'll read every word of the article of how Blackrock beat Ross Gray yesterday. Every single word, and I may read it twice or 3 times. Where does my mother go when she gets the Irish Independent? She goes straight to the obituaries, right to the deaths column. She'll read from A to Z. Now there are 78 pages in today's Irish Independent. So between my mother and I, we've scoured 2 of them. Now unfortunately, if your ad has come anywhere between the sports column and the obituaries, we're very unlikely to see it. That's why print advertising is not good value for money unless you know the rules. Now the rules will impact every part of your marketing message, and there are essentially 3 of them. David Ogilvy, the wonderful marketing guru, he said that every promotional piece needs to achieve 4 objectives. 1, it needs to grab the client's attention. 2, it's got to make them interested. 3, it's got to create desire in the mind of the customer. And 4, and crucially, it's got to get the customer to take action. Now there you have it, folks. 50 years old, the advice is as relevant today as it was then. Every aspect of your marketing, from a business card to a website to a sales representative representing you, you got to ask 4 questions. 1, do they grab attention? 2, is their message of interest? 3, are they capturing desire? And 4, are they getting a call to action? Now, how do you do that in print advertising? Well, very simply, folks, 3 ways. 1 is a headline. Think about it. Every newspaper in the world is a series of headlines. And the reason for that is headlines work. If you don't have headlines on your website, absolute waste of time. Get rid of it today. Headlines are what are going to captivate and get somebody to spend 3 seconds on your website, which is the average time somebody spends on it. If they don't get their interest captivated, then they're going to go elsewhere. Number 2, images work. Or photographs. You've heard of the expression, a picture is worth 1,000 words. Absolutely crucial in your marketing design. And without being sexist or ageist or animalist, the 3 photographs that capture all of the components of Ada are 1, attractive women, 2, animals, and 3, children. You may wonder why Andrex Lou paper are still using Labrador puppies. The reason they are is that it works. So 3 things to get onto your website, or indeed onto your imagery. The other thing, interestingly, is location. We read from left to right, but we scan from right to left. Interestingly, when you get a magazine or a newspaper, do you begin at the front or the back? If you've answered the back, 68% of people begin at the back. You're in the majority. So if you can get a nod page at the back of a newspaper or a magazine, very, 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 very well looked at, so it is. So the odd pages 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, and also from the back, very powerful. Interestingly, a few little components of good design. Vertical or portrait pulls infinitely better than landscape or horizontal. That's right, that's wrong. Small stuff. Very, very, very powerful, so it is. Lowercase, infinitely better than capital letters. Use a serif font as opposed to a sans serif font or a sans serif font. Every book that has ever sold really well has been in a serif font. There are little things that make a huge difference. Okay, let's move on to the next phase. So those are ways of attracting customers, or getting customers for your business. Now, depending on what source you've heard, but you've heard it for 1,000 times, that it's 6 times more expensive to get a new customer as opposed to holding on to an existing customer. Now, if you've heard that before, you need to hear it for the 1,001st time, because it's a crucial component of good marketing. So what are you doing to hold on to your existing customers? I'm going to share with you an exercise that can have a magnificent impact on the way you do business. And it's very simply what we call a cycle of service. I would love you to look at your business through the eyes of the customer. Forget about yourself and your own systems and your own schedule and your own traditions. Look at the business through the eyes of a customer. And depending on your business, what are the main contact points between you and your customers? Okay? One company we worked with just last week, they mentioned the phone. They mentioned the web. They mentioned their windows. They mentioned their staff. Now, what you can begin to do when you have identified the key points of contact, the next really important component is to sit down and work out what we call minimum standards of service. Minimum standards of service. So think about it. What might a minimum standard of service be for answering a phone in your business? I think you need to work this out with your key people. You sit down. I think for this particular organization, we worked out about 5 minimum of standards. 1, that the phone ideally be answered between 2 to 4 rings. The reason for that is if you answer too quickly, you scare the living daylights out of somebody. If you leave it for longer than 4 rings, it may suggest you're not big enough to have a receptionist. That doesn't matter, but in marketing, perception is everything. Number 2, a script to answer the phone. What we recommended there was good morning or good afternoon, O'Malley Group, Esther speaking. And the reason for that is you give a salutation, you give the name of the business, and you give the name of the person who's actually answering it. 7 out of 10 of your competitors will not do this. This is a way for nothing except a little bit of thinking that you can be different and better. Do you remember those components we talked about earlier on? The other thing is take control of the phone conversation. If you let people rabbit on, it wastes everybody's time. Come up with 3 to 4 to 5 questions to take control of the phone conversation, and then take notes. Make sure it's followed up, and always, always, always thank the customer for calling. It costs nothing, but 9 out of 10 of your competitors will not thank the customer for calling. Now folks, those are about 5 minimum standards of service for answering a telephone. Have you ever asked yourself how many calls do you get a day? Well, we do that typically in SMACHT programs, and people say 40. 40 phone calls a day by 5 days a week. That's 200 calls a week. That's 200 moments of truth about your business. 200 statements. Now, do you want to make those statements empowering your company or disempowering it? You have that absolute ability today, and you can go through it via your cycle of service. Now, while we're talking about service, there was some research done in Ireland some years ago, and it was done by a man called John Murphy. John was, I think he was president of the Irish Quality Association. And I'm going to call it the Murphy 5. He interviewed many people, big, wide, cross-representative sample. And he asked them, what are the things you want when you're doing business with another company? And here are the 5. The first one was reliability. Sounds old-fashioned. What reliability means, does it do what it says on the can? Do you do what you say you do? Score yourself on a score of 1 to 10. Number 2, responsiveness. You know, if somebody rings you, get back to them. Get back to them quickly. You don't have to do the job, but your response rate or your responsiveness is critical. Research would indicate that this has become more important in the intervening period. Number 3, it's a word called assurance. What are you doing to assure your customers that they're still really, really, really good? I'm very interested when I go to my dentist. He's got a series of certificates up at the wall, all in Latin. I don't know what any of them mean, but they do suggest to me that he's done a few degrees before he goes at my teeth. It's reassurance or assurance. That's why it's very much worth your while to go for awards or recognition or joint chambers of commerce. It gives people assurance that you can do the job. Number 4 is empathy. We've spoken about this already, and this is really the fact that people buy people first and they buy your product second. Are you a nice company to do business with? Really, 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 really powerful question. And funnily enough, number 5 in Murphy's research was your product or service. Many people begin with this. They try to create packaging and everything works with it. If you're interested in business, begin to look at what we call the total product offering. Be very well aware of reliability, responsiveness, empathy, and assurance. That, allied with your service and product, is where you're really going to make your fortune in this business. I will leave you with something we call the elevator story or the elevator pitch. Very powerful in marketing. Because so many people, and it derives from when, if you were to get into a lift or an elevator and somebody meets you and they ask you who you are and what do you do. If you stumble upon that, you're in big trouble. If you've got it prepared, you have a wonderful advantage to connect and engage and hopefully meet that person again. It's estimated in marketing that it takes 7 points of contact before somebody will do business with you. So that might be a chance meeting in an elevator. That might be the opportunity to exchange business cards. That's the second one. The third one might be a phone call to arrange an appointment, and the fourth one might be the appointment. Bear in mind that it's very unlikely somebody will buy from you on the first contact point. So it's incredibly important that first impressions matter. And one of the great ways to craft an elevator pitch is not to start yakking about you. Begin by articulating the problem that your customer has. So for my particular case, we might say, you know, the way some business people would love to have a profitable business, but don't want to work in it full time. Well, you know, we run a workshop that can help people increase their net worth, reduce their stress levels, and improve hugely the morale of their business in as little as 3 to 4 months. And that is a 2-sentence elevator story that enables for us to get our point across very quickly. So in conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, very quickly, we would recommend you call them POWs, pearls of wisdom. We would recommend you sit down with your core group and you identify a number of areas. 1, the key segments of customers. 2, you quantify those segments in both value and volume. How many of them are there and how much are they worth? Then you actually go and you ask why they would do business with you. And you gotta be different. And thirdly is the strategic bit. How are you actually going to target each of those segments? So that's very much about getting new customers for your business. The next one is the cycle of service. Once you've got profitable customers, What are you actively going to do to retain them or hold on to them? And finally, I would encourage you to be aware of good design. As Tom Peters said, spend. In conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Pádraig Ó Máille, creator of SMACHT and author of The Midas Power. If you found you were interested in what we talked about, please contact us on www.smacht, that's SMACHT.com, or call us on 00353 91 865 340. Alternatively, send us an email and we'll put you on our blog list. In the final analysis, marketing is always a choice. You can choose to either master it or choose not to do it. We would highly recommend you to choose to master it, and these pearls of wisdom can help you greatly. Good luck for now.